नमस्काराः। सिद्धान्तकौमुद्याः अजन्तस्त्रीलिङ्गप्रकरणे तृतीयः पाठः। मे मासस्य 24 दिनाङ्कः। येनाक्षरसमां नायमधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः। वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयं नमस्कृत्य तरुक्तिः परिभाव्य च वैयाकरणसिद्धान्तकौमुदीयं विरच्यते। आकारान्तस्त्रीलिङ्गेषु आकारान्तस्त्रीलिङ्गेषु साधारणशब्दः रमाशब्दः, तदुत्तरं सर्वनामशब्दः सर्वा शब्दः। आकारान्तसर्वनामसु के विशेषाः इति चेत् वस्तुतः सूत्रद्वयमेव तत्र भवति। सर्वनाम्नः याट् ह्रस्वश्च इत्यनेन गीतां प्रत्ययानां याट् इति आगमः भवति। आकारान्तरमाशब्दस्य तु याट् आगमः, याडापः इति सूत्रेण तत्र स्याट् आगमः, तेन सह प्रकृतेः ह्रस्वोऽपि भवति। तेन सर्वा ङे इत्युच्यते। सर्वा स्या ए ह्रस्वे सर्वस्या ए सर्वस्यै रूपम्। सर्वनाम्नः स्याड् ह्रस्वश्च इति एकं विशिष्टं सूत्रम्। अपरन्तु आमि सर्वनाम्नः सुट् सद्यापो नुट् इति साधारणानाम् आबन्तानां नुडागमः। सर्वनाम्नां तु सर्वनाम्नः परस्य आमस्तु सुडागमो भवति, तेन सर्वासाम्। So these are the only two sutras which apply specifically for sarvanama. In other cases, it is like a general word, like say if you have tritiya vibhakti, anitapaha would apply, etc. Other than that, there are two more sutras which are concerned with sarvanama. Vibhasha diksamase bahuvriho ityanena दिङ्नामान्यन्तराले इति विहितस्य बहुव्रीहिसमासस्य अथवा तस्मिन् बहुव्रीहिसमासे सर्वनामत्वं विकल्प्यते। अर्थात् उत्तरस्याः पूर्वस्याः दिशो यदन्तरालम् उत्तरपूर्वा अस्ति चेत् सर्वनामसंज्ञायाः विकल्पः, तेन उत्तरपूर्वस्यै इति एकं रूपम्, उत्तरपूर्वायै इति अपरम्। अन्यच्च विभाषा द्वितीया तृतीयाभ्याम्। द्वितीया शब्दस्य तृतीया शब्दस्य च स्याट् आगमः विकल्प्यते अनेन सूत्रेण। स्याट् आगमस्य विकल्पे द्वितीयस्य द्वितीयायै. Why the sutra was specifically told? Because Tritiya and Tritiya do not have sarvanamasya, so they would not get Syat or Sudagama. So by the sutra, Panini says Syadagama will be done optionally. So you have forms like Tritiyasyaha, Tritiyayaha, etc. But there is a Vartika which is given in connection with in the Sarvanama Prakarana, which says Hiyasya Nitsu Upasankhyanam. Hiya iti pratyayasya Nitsu Upasankhyanam. Arthati Nitsu pratyayeshu pareshu vikalpena Sarvanama Samya bhavati iti anena Vartikena uchyate. So it's a Vartika with a wider scope than the Sutra. The Sutra tells only for these two words, Dvitiya and Tritiya, and only in it the Syat is optional. But by the Vartika or any Tiya Pratyayanta, in it Pratyayas, the Sarvanama Samya itself is made optional. So last class when I was talking, I think I made an error. I said even in Am, by the Vartika there would be two forms, which is wrong. Because even the Vartika says only Nitsu. Only in Nit Pratyayas there is a Vikalpa of Sarvanama Samya, because of which the forms, whatever are derived, are same for Dvitiya and Tritiya in both, whether we take the Sutra or the Vartika. But because of the Vartika, even in Pullinga we can do Dvitiyasmin, etc., which cannot be done by the Sutra. The Sutra is specific to Dvitiya and Tritiya, which are the Streelinga forms. Right? But because of the Vartika, we can apply the Sarvanama Karya even in Pullingas, like Dvitiyasmai, Dvitiyaya. That would be the difference, and not in Am. Because Am is not Nit, even by the Vartika, we will not get forms like Sarvasam, we cannot do for Dvitiya or Tritiya. So that was my, I don't know what I was thinking, so I made that error. Yeah, next, Ambarthanadyor Hasvaha. We come to words like Amba in Sambuddhi. For any Avanta in Sambuddhi, Sambuddhausa ityanena etvam vidhiyate. He Rama tu itasthite, he Rame tu iti bhavati, enghasva Sambuddhehe iti sulopaha. He Rame iti rupam. He Amba tu itasthite tu Ambarthanadyoho hrasvaha ityanena hrasvo bhavati. He Amba tu itasthite hrasvanadyapo nut ityanena nudagamaha. Sorry. Enghasva Sambuddhehe ityanena sambuddhi lopaha. He Amba iti rupam. He Amba, he Akka, he Alla. Sarvepi Ambarthaha. Nama Amba Janani ityeva arthaha sarvesham shabdanam. Tatraiva vartikamasit asanyukta ye dalakaha tadvatam hrasvo na. Dalakaha dakara lakara kakaraha asanyukta stet sanyogaha nasti chet hrasvaha na bhavati. Ambartha shabdeshu eva. In words which are ambarthaka, if there is a da, la or ka at the end, which is not involved in a sanyoga, then there is no hrasva. Examples he gives are he ambade, he ambale, and he ambike. You see, they have da, la, ka, which are not in a sanyoga. They are all individual vyanjanas. So for them, in their case, there is no hrasva. We do Eatra by Sambuddhauta and Sambuddhi Lopa. Okay. Anantaram Jara Shabdaha. Akaranta Streelingaha Jara Shabdaha. Jaraya Jaras Anyatarasyam ityanena. Jaras iti adesho bhavati Jara Shabdasya. Tatra uktam Shibhava Yat Nudadibhyaha Paratvat Jaras. For example, if you have Jarasadeshaha putra bhavati, Ajadishu pratyayeshu pareshu, Jara shabdasya vikalpena Jaras ityadeshaha. So Jara au ityasya. Tatra aunga apaha ityanena, aunga sthane shi bhavah karaniyo va. Jaraya jarasanyatarasyam iti prakatehe jarasadeshu karaniyo va iti prashnaha. So sarvatra paratvat Jaras ityasya. Jarasadeshe kate Jaras au Jarasau iti rupam, ekam rupam. आदेशा भावे जरा औ शी भावे जरा ई गुणे जरे जरसौ जरे इति रूपद्वयम् एवमेव दसि जरसः जराः इत्यादि. So look at the forms. These are the forms for jara shabda. अजादिषु प्रत्ययेषु परेषु जराया जरसन्यतरस्याम् इति वैकल्पिकः जरसादेशः भवति. So in all these forms there will be two forms. Now there is a question raised. So there are a couple of questions which are raised by Dikshita and answered. The first one says, Iha purva pratishedhena shibhavam krutva sannipata paribhashayaha vidyatam यह पूर्व प्रतिषेधेन शीभावं कृत्वा सन्निपात परिभाषायाः अनित्यतां च आश्रित्य जरसी इति केचिदाहुः तत् निर्मूलम्. So to see what exactly he means. He has given both the question and the answer in a single sentence. It says aunga apaha ityasti. औंगः स्थाने शी आदेशो भवति. आपः आबन्तात् परस्य औ प्रत्ययस्य स्थाने शी इति आदेशः. सूत्रसंख्या भवति सप्तमाध्यायस्य प्रथमपादस्य 18 सूत्रमिदम्. जराया जरसन्नितरस्याम् अजादौ विभक्तौ जरा इत्यस्य विकल्पेन जरस् इत्यादेशो भवति. सप्तमाध्यायस्य द्वितीयपादस्य 100तमं सूत्रम्. जरस विप्रतिषेधः. विप्रतिषेधः तुल्यबलविरोधः विप्रतिषेधः इत्युच्यते. So both of these are contesting with each other. So which one should be applied? So normally what we do is vipratishethe param karyam ityanena शीभावं बाधित्वा जरस् आदेशो भवति इति उक्तं. That is the siddhanta. Right? Now whatever is given is the purva paksha. That is, they raise down and then the siddhanti tries to answer them. So there is a question here. The normal thing we do is para vipratishetha. Vipratishethe param karyam. Into purva vipratishetha ityati asti. Kvachit vipratishethe sati purvam karyam bhavati iti asti shastre. There have been some cases listed by the Bhashyakara where he says in all these cases we apply purva vipratishetha. For example, you have studied one such article. Numatira siddhat bhavebhyo nrit nukta purva vipratishetena ityadi. Okay. So there is purva vipratishetha. So a purva sutra will overrule the para sutra. So it says iha purva vipratishetena shibhavam kritva. So let us apply purva vipratishetha here. And what will happen? Jara au ityasti. Tada adau aunga apaha ityena shi adesho bhavati. Tena jara I. Idani ayamapi ajantaha. This is also ajanta. So jaraya jarasana sarasyam ityena jaras iti adesho bhavati. Jaras I tena jarasi iti rupam. Siddhante tu jarasau iti rupam. Atra purva vipratishetena shibhavam kritva sannipata paribhashayaha anityata mashrya. The question which would arise here is, at this stage, then aunga apaha iti shibhavah kritaha. Idanim jaras adeshah karaniyah bhavati va iti prashnah. Shibhavah katham kritaha. Abanta rangat parasya aungah shi syat. If the anga is abanta, the au is replaced by shi. So shibhava depends on abantatva. Now if you are doing jaras adesha kate abantatvam nashtam. This is no longer abanta. The ap is not see the abanta here, right? So the ap is gone. So shibhava, which is dependent on jaras for its own origin, will not like to destroy the ap. This is what sannipata paribhasha says. Sannipata lakshano vidhi animittam tad vidhatasya. Janena. Abantasya angasya sannipatam ashritya pravrittah shibhavah. Abanta vidhatakaha na bhavati. It would not like to destroy the abanta. So actually once we do shibhava, we cannot do jaras because of sannipata paribhasha. But he says sannipata paribhashayaha anityatam ashritya. So sannipata paribhasha is anitya. Means it does not apply in certain cases. Okay. So we will say that sannipata paribhasha is anitya here, and we will get the form jarasi. Iti kechitahu. Some people say this. In iha purva vipratishetena shibhavam kritva sannipata paribhashayaha anityatam cha ashritya jarasi iti kechitahu. Tat nirmulam. Nirmulam means it's baseless. It's a baseless argument. This is what Dikshita says. He does not elaborate. He does not say why it is baseless. Balamanoramayam Vasudeva Dikshita vadanti Purva Viprati Shedhashrayanasya Bhashya Apariganiteshu Apravrittehe. So tam nirmulam iti pratike Balamanoramakkarena uktam Purva Viprati Shedhashrayanasya Bhashya Apariganiteshu Apravrittehe. He says Purva Viprati Shedha cannot be applied indiscriminately everywhere. We cannot use this everywhere or anywhere we like. Bhashya apariganiteshu apravrittihi. It does not apply in cases where it has not been indicated by the Bhashyakara. It means the Bhashyakara has marked certain cases where Purva Vipratishetha will apply. Bhashyakarena uktamasti. Eshu sthaleshu. Athava Vartikakarena seva asti. Numatira siddhat bhavebhyo nut Purva Vipratishetena. Ityadi Vakyani santi. So he has considered or he has listed out cases where Purva Vipratishetha can apply. Bhashya apariganiteshu. In cases where Bhashya has not mentioned it, apravritti, Purva Vipratishetha cannot apply. That's the first thing. And Bhashyakara has not told Purva Vipratishetha in this case. Right? So you cannot say take Purva Vipratishetha here. That's the first point. Purva Vipratishetha Shrengasya Bhashya apariganiteshu apravrittehe. That is the first reason. The second reason, sannipata paribhashayaha sarvatra anityatvaashrayane pramana-bhavacha. Also, sannipata paribhasha is anitya too. But where does it not apply? You cannot say that wherever you like, okay, since it is anitya, let it not apply here. That is not how it works. Tatrapi yatra bhashyakarena uktam sannipata paribhasha atra na pravartate iti tatraiva tasyaha anityatvam svikriyate. Sarvatra anitya iti na. It is not anitya everywhere, only in particular cases. So, sannipata paribhashayaha sarvatra anityatvaashrayane pramana bhava. So, both techniques which are being utilized for this argument. One is purva vipratishedha and the other is anityatva of sannipata paribhasha. Both of them are baseless. That is, you cannot use them indiscriminately or wherever we like. So since we cannot use both these arguments, this argument itself does not work. Right? So, purva vipratishedhopi, purva vipratishedham kartumapi pramanam, bhashya pramanam nasti. Sannipata paribhasha atra anitya iti vaktumapi pramanam nasti. Tasmat idam na yujyate. Iti dikshitanam mata. Is this clear? Or does somebody want it explained again?
Yeah, I think I appreciate another round of discussion because I was trying to look at Vyoma-Manorama. I couldn't get that right section.
I'm not able to hear you clearly. Voice is breaking.
I asked the logic a little bit here.
Okay.
The issue is you are trying to use the avulapaha for jara shabda. The question is whether you start with jara and then go to shiyadesha and then come to making it jara to jaras or not. If you did make jaras, you will get a jarasi. Right. So, first your logic of that by sannipata paribhashaya.
I'm able to hear it clearly. I'm not able to make out what exactly it is doing.
Okay, you cannot hear me?
And there is some break in voice when you're talking.
Oh, okay. So,
can tell me, now I can hear you. You can tell me.
Yeah. The sequence of logic I am a little bit lost here. I got it up to jara au, shiyadesha by au maha. And the question is whether you can use the jaraya anyatarasyam, jaras anyatarasyam to make it jaras and the jarasi form for pratama vivachana. And the logic of sannipata paribhashaya the question was whether it would negate the conversion of jara to jaras.
Right.
And the answer is because that sannipata paribhasha is anityam. You can go ahead and use it.
Right.
And Bhattoti's argument is that that is nirmula.
Right.
And then you went ahead with Vyoma-Manorama and he said something to the effect that the start of the argument itself is nirmula.
Right. So the argument itself is baseless. Both purva pratishedha and sannipata paribhashayaha nityatva do not have a base in bhashyakara. It does not come from sound logic is what he says.
That means we should not be converting to jara to jaras.
No. The Sanipata Parishashayaha, yeah, right. You cannot convert jara to jaras is the second point. Before that, you cannot do aungapaha first, is also there. You cannot.
First, you can do jara to jaras, then aungapaha is getting thrown out, right? If you first convert to jara to jaras, then aungapaha will not come into play.
Yeah, because it is not abanta, we cannot do aungapaha. So it will remain jarasau, jarasau.
Jarasau, jarasau, yeah. So, but can one take both the route to get two forms? You can get two forms or not?
We can, because the jaras adesha is vikalpa. So when you do jaras adesha, you cannot do au, shi bhava. So the one form is jarasau. But when there is an option where there is no jaras adesha, then we can do shi bhava. It will become jare. So jarasau jare iti rupadvayam.
Maybe what I am looking for is the purva vipratisheda definition.
Purva vipratisheda is just where when there is conflict between two sutras, we usually apply the para sutra, the latter sutra. That is the general vipratisheda. Purva vipratisheda is where there is a conflict between two sutras, we apply the earlier sutra, not the latter one. It is when there is a conflict between two sutras, the deciding factor is vipratishedhe param karyam. The latter sutra will apply, is the general rule. But there are a few exceptions listed in the Bhashya where instead of the para sutra, the purva sutra will apply. That is called purva vipratishedha.
So if you use aungapaha, you are using purva vipratishedha.
Right. So when there is a conflict between aungapaha and the raya jarasanya, if we have to do aungapaha first, it would be purva vipratishedha. But it is not allowed because this case, that is, Bhashyakara has not approved of purva vipratishedha in this case.
Okay, so he would allow jarasau.
He has not taken this case into consideration for purva vipratishedha. So you cannot apply aungapaha here. Which means for Bhashyakara, the rupa has to be jarasau and not jarasi.
Jarasau only, yeah. Even though it is optional, that becomes preferred.
Optional is there. Jarasau, jare, two forms are there. But he does not want jarasi.
He does not.
Jarasi is not the correct form. It can be jarasau, it can be jare, not both. That is, we cannot have both aungapaha and jaraya jarasana sarasya. In one case, it is jarasadesha. In the other case, it is shi bhava.
Thank you. Sorry for the...
Oh, no problem. So we will go on. So this is one. The first doubt was, can we do both? Okay. Now this has been rejected. There's one more thing which he says. Yadyapi jarasadeshasya sthanivaddhavena agantakam ashritya aungapaha आंगिकापः याडापः ह्रस्वनद्यापोनुच येरां नद्यां मीठः इति च पञ्चापि विधयः प्राप्ताः एवं न च निषकृत्सु. So this is one half of the sentence and the first half of the argument. So we'll see what it means. It says jarasadeshasya sthanivaddhavena abantakam ashritya. We have jara au vipratisheddhe param karyam इत्यनेन परत्वात् जरसादेशः क्रियते. According to the Siddhanta itself, we will do paratvat jaras. So it becomes jaras au, jaraya jarasanya. What we discussed is, once we do jarasadesha, shi bhavam kartum na shakyate. Kimartham na shakyate? Abantatvam nasti. This is not abanta. Jaras does not have af. This is not Abanta. So once we do Jarasadesha, we cannot convert out to she. Is what we thought. But he says, Jarasadeshasya Thanivadbhavena Avantatam Ashtitya. So applies Thanivadadesho Analvidho. So Jarasabdasya Sthane Jarasadeshah Kratah Taha Thanivad Bhavati. Arthate Avantam. Avantatvam irasti tat Thanivatvena Aniyate. Because of Thanivadbhava, let us bring that Avantatva, the property of Avantatva from Jara. We have Jara. If the property of Avantatva is brought from its Thani, then this also becomes Avanta. So if this is Avanta, then we can do whatever other karyas depending on Avantas. As we discussed in last class, there are 5 karyas which depend on Avantas. Aunga apaha. Avantat angat parasya aungaha shishya. Ani cha apaha. Ani otita kare Avantasya angasya etvam syat. Yat apaha. Avantat parasya mit pratyasya yadagamo bhavati. Tassanadhyapo nate. Tasvantat madhyantat avantat angat parasya amaha nudagamaha bhavati. Yeram madhyam nishah. Madhyantat avantat ni shabdat parasya nyehe am adeshah bhavati. So there are 5 karyas which depend on Avantas. So in all these cases, paratvat jaras. So it is not only for jarasau. For all these cases, there is a conflict between jarasadesha and these 5. In all these cases, we do paratvat jarasadesho bhavati. Jarasadeshe krute thanivadbhavena avantatam ashritya panchapi vidhayaha praptaha. We can apply these also. Because of thanivadbhava, we assume that this is still avanta and we can apply these. So if we apply these, thanivadbhavena avantatva, now again we can do aunga apaha, jarasi, and we end up with the same form, jarasi. Okay, so this is the second way of saying that this form is correct. Okay, so somebody is arguing for the form jarasi. The first argument was purva vipratishedha and thanivadbhavasya anityata, which was rejected. The second one is no purva vipratishedha. It is fine. We do paratvat jaras. Perfectly okay. Then again, thanivadbhavena ayam api avantaha iti matva idanim aunga apaha iti shibhavah kriyatam iti prashnaha. This is, if we do that, then we will have to apply. The form would be jarasi. Yes. So evam nasu nishu pritsu. So this refers to later. We will do, if you remember, we had a Paddanoma Sutra, Pada, Danta, etc. had some adeshas. Like Jaraya, Jarasannakarasya, Nasika, the word Nasika will have the adesha, Nasu. The word Nisha will have the adesha, Nish. Pritana will have the adesha, Prit. So all these are cases where there is an adesha. In all these cases, we can apply the same logic. So using the logic, we can both do the adesha and some other karya, okay, which will give rise to a different form than what has been accepted in Siddhanta. So, yadyapi jarasadeshasya thanivadbhavena avantatam ashritya aungapaha ityadayah panchapi vidhayaha praptaha. The answer is tathapi analvidhau ityuktehe na bhavanti. The answer is analvidhau. Thanivadadeshah analvidhau. Alvidhau thanivadbhavaha nasti. So since this is alvidhi, we cannot apply thanivadbhava. Is the answer. But how is this alvidhi? This is the next question. I am alvidhi katham bhavati, because ap anta, abantatva is not an alvidhi. Abantatva does not reside in a single letter. What is alvidhi? Alashrayaha vidhihi alvidhi. Any vidhi which depends on a single letter is called alvidhi. Okay. Now, this abantatva is not alvidhi. One second, I think I lost. Internet connection. Just give me a second. Can you still see my screen?
Yes, so we can see the screen.
The connection was lost. Reconnect. Yeah, now it is. Okay, so it is tathapi analvidhau ityuktehe na bhavanti. How is this alvidhi? Alvidhi is where a vidhi depends on a single letter. Now, the vidhis which say aunga, apaha, etc. do not depend on a single letter. Okay, to see this distinction, it does not depend on akarantatva. It depends on abantatva. Abanta is not in just akara. It is in a samoha which is tap, dap or chap. So the ap pratyaya is or abantatva does not reside in a single letter. It resides in a group of letters. So abantatva is not alvidhi. So, how we do analvidhau is the question. This is tathapi analvidhau ityuktehe na bhavanti. आप इति प्रश्लिष्टस्य आकाररूपस्यैव आपः सर्वत्र ग्रहणात्. यत्र औङ आपः इत्यस्ति तत्र कथम् इति चेत् औङ औङः आपः. So everywhere where you have आपः, he says there is a prashlishta akara. I've seen this prashlesha earlier. Can somebody remember? Prashleshah, akara prashleshah kutra asit. कुत्र दृष्टम् अस्माभिः? Somebody remember? There we use the same technique we used. So we can go and look back into the lessons and see where we use akara prashlesha. Prashlesha means there is an added letter which is not visible. Okay. There is an additional letter which is not visible and which may or may not have been intended by the original sutrakara, but still because the bhashyakara says it, we accept it. Okay. Prashlesha is there, and there is, we consider that there is an invisible letter. So now apaha, it simply means abanta when we take it generally. But it could also be a-ap. If it is a-ap, akasavarne dirghaha ityanena punaha ap ityeva bhavati. So when you say ap, you cannot see that extra a which is there because savarna dirgha sandhi has been done. So we consider that in all these cases, Panini is saying not just apa, he is saying a-ap. So that is an akara prashlesha. It means the akara is invisibly present in ap. You cannot see it clearly because the sandhi has taken it away, but still it is there. A-ap ityasti akaraha prashlishtaha. Tena kim bhavati? Akara rupasyaiva apaha sarvatra grahanat. Everywhere where we say ap, we say the ap which is in the form of akara. That is what we consider. So what does it mean if you say औङ अपः इति सूत्रमस्ति. कः अर्थः सूत्रस्य? आबन्तात् अङ्गात् परस्य औङः शी स्यात्. अयमेव सूत्रार्थः दत्तः. If there is an aung which is preceded by an abanta anga, there will be she. Now what is the meaning? Akara rupaha yaha ap sadantat angat parasya aungah she syat. Abantat, it is not just abanta. Akara rupaha yaha ap. So that ap has to be in the form of an akara. That is, the ap anta is fine, but it should also be akaranta, is what it says. So because of that extra additional akara, It means that when an abanta is in the form of akara, that is, the dirgha akara is heard in the abanta, tadantat angat parasya aunah shishya ityartho bhavati. Right? So here, now this akara rupaha yaha ap iti uchyate kila, atra akaraha al. So when you are saying that abanta has to be in the form of an akara, that a is al. It's a single letter. Right? Akaraha al. So when Shibhava has to be done, depending on that akara, it becomes al-vidhi. So Shibhavaha akara rupam alam ashritya pravartate ityataha saha al-vidhihi. Al-vidhishchet sthanivadadeshaha anal-vidhau. Al-vidhau sthanivadbhavaha na bhavati. When you have jaras, jaras can be made abanta, but it cannot be akaranta by sthanivadbhava. Right? By sthanivadbhava, what you can get is anal vidhi. Only that which does not depend on a single letter you can get. Okay? If you use sthanivadbhava here, you can make it abanta, but you cannot make it akaranta, because being akaranta is an al vidhi. So, tena atra sthanivadbhavena akara rupatvam anetum na shakyate. Yadyapi abantatvam anetum shakyate, tathapi akara rupatvam na bhavati. So, jarasadeshe krite Shibhavaha na bhavati. Go back to the previous slide. Oh. Sorry, not this. Jarasadeshaha kritaha. At this stage, we have to do sthanivadbhava and establish that this is an abanta. That was the argument. But even though this sthanivadbhava can make it abanta, it cannot make it akara rupa. It cannot make it akaranta. Right? So both of those are needed for Shibhava. One thing is abanta, but the condition is also that that abanta has to be in the form of akara. Now akara rupatvam al-vidhihi. Tasmat akara rupatvam sthanivadbhavena anetum na shakyate. Because of that, we cannot apply Shibhava. The form has to be jaras au. It's the answer. Tathapi anal vidhau ityuktehe na bhavanti. Aap iti prashlishtasya akara rupasyaiva apaha sarvatra grahanat. Okay. So now the question is, can we have an abanta which is not akaranta? Is no. Naturally we cannot have. Abanta always will be akaranta. But when we do such adeshas, whenever we do, say, replace jara with jaras or replace nasika with nas, with sthanivadbhava, we can still say it is abanta, but it is not akaranta. So we cannot apply these auna, paha, yada, paha, etc. So in all those cases, it is prevented. Right? Clear so far? Because it takes the argument further. So if this much is clear, we can go ahead. There are two arguments which have been told so far. One is we use Purva Pratishvedha and Anityatva of Pranipata Paribhasha. The second is we use Sthanivadbhava. So both those cases have been rejected. Okay. Now the question is, what is the point of Sthanivadbhava? I did not understand your question originally. Are you meaning to say what is the point?
If we cannot treat abanta as akara, then what is the point of telling that jaras is like jara? The whole point of sthanivadbhava is to have.
In this case, we cannot tell that. In this case, we cannot. Sthanivadbhava has its uses in lot of cases. In this particular case, we do not use sthanivadbhava because the forms are not. I mean, if we use sthanivadbhava, we get the wrong forms. So as you say, they are preventing sthanivadbhava in certain cases. Sthanivadbhava has its uses in many other cases. In this case, we do not want sthanivadbhava. So that is why they are using some logic to prevent sthanivadbhava. Okay. So now that this is done, there is a further argument. This is fine. So in all cases, if there is an adesha for the abanta, the adesha can be done, but the karya depending on abanta cannot be done after the adesha. is what this means clearly. So jaras adeshah bhavati, kintu jaras adeshe krute avantatva nimittani karyani na bhavanti. एवमेव नासिकायाः नस् इति आदेशः चेत् आदेशः भवति किन्तु तदनन्तरम् आदेशे कृते आवन्तत्व प्रयुक्तानि कार्याणि न भवन्ति इत्यर्थः. So this is all fine. This is an argument. Okay. So now he says he extends this logic to other cases. एवं हल्ज्ञाप् इति सूत्रेपि आ आप नि इ इति प्रश्लेषात् अतिखट्वः निष्कौशाम्बिः इत्यादि सिद्धेः दीर्घग्रहणं प्रत्याख्येयम्. This is not directly concerned with this sutra. It's just extending this logic to another sutra, which is हल्ज्ञाभ्यो दीर्घात् इति प्रस्थं हल इति सूत्रम्. कोऽर्थः? हलन्तात् परं दीर्घौ यौ ज्ञापौ तदन्ताच्च परं सूतीसि इत्येतद् अपृक्तं हल् उच्यते इति सूत्रार्थः. अर्थः, if there is सूतीसि, which is अपृक्त एकाल् प्रत्ययः, अर्थात् सु इति अस्ति प्रत्यये, so it is preceded by halanta. If there is a halanta anga, like there is marut su इति उच्यते, हलन्तात् परस्य सुप्रत्ययस्य लोके marut इति रूपम्. दीर्घौ यौ ज्ञापौ तदन्ताच्च परम्. If there is a दीर्घन्यन्त, you have गौरी इति शब्दः अस्ति, नीष् प्रत्ययान्तः, so न्यन्तः गौरी सु इति स्थिते सुप्रत्ययस्य लोके गौरी इति रूपम्. दीर्घः आबन्तः, which you already seen, रमा इति स्थिते सुप्रत्ययस्य लोके रमा इति रूपम्. So that is the use of हल्ज्ञाभ्यो दीर्घात् सुतिस्य प्रस्थं हल्. Now the question, there is a dalakritya there, दीर्घात् किं निष्कौशाम्बिः अधिखट्वः इति दत्तं. दीर्घात् दीर्घौ यौ ज्ञापौ इति किमर्थम् उच्यते? Since ni is always ikaranta, apanta is always akaranta, it always happens to be dirgha ikaranta and dirgha akaranta. Why should you specifically say dirghat? Halyabhyo dirghat iti kimartham uchyate? Dirghau jnapau iti kimartham iti prashna. So the answer was निष्कौशाम्बिः अतिखट्वः. कौशाम्ब्याः निष्क्रान्तः. कौशाम्बी इति न्यन्तम् ईकारान्तं. समासः कौशाम्ब्याः निर्गतः निष्क्रान्तः इति वा प्रादिसमासः. Then you have निष्कौशाम्बी गोत्र्योपसर्जनस्य इत्यनेन ह्रस्वे निष्कौशाम्बि इति ह्रस्व इकारान्तं प्रातिपदिकम्. एवमेव अतिखट्वः खट्वाम् अतिक्रान्तः. खट्वा इति आबन्तं दीर्घ आकारान्तं. समासे कृते गोत्र्योपसर्जनस्य इत्यनेन ह्रस्वत्वे कृते अतिखट्व इति ह्रस्व आकारान्तं भवति. In this case, by sthanivaddhava, this is still, or by ekadesh vikutam ananyavat, this is still nyanta and this is still abanta. Right? This can be treated as nyanta and this can be treated as abanta. But it is not dirgha. You do not hear the dirgha ikara or dirgha ni or dirgha a here. Okay? So if you do not say dirgha, sutre dirghat iti nyoচ্यते चेत् न्यन्तात् आबन्तात् परस्य यदि सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः तर्हि अत्रापि सुप्रत्ययस्य लोपः भवितुम् अर्हति. Here also we can delete the supratyaya because this is nyanta and this is abanta. This is not desired. निष्कौशाम्बिः इति सुप्रत्ययस्य ऋत्वं विसर्गः इष्यते. अधिखट्वः इत्यत्रापि ऋत्वविसर्गौ इष्यते. किं करणीयं? दीर्घात् इति विशेषणं स्थापितं. तेन किं भवति? यत्र दीर्घः न्यन्तः दीर्घः आबन्तः तत्रैव सुलोपः. अत्र दीर्घः नास्ति अतः सुलोपो न भवति. That is what was the argument there. हल्ज्ञाभ्यो दीर्घात् सुतिस्य पृक्तं हल् इति उच्यते. दीर्घग्रहणस्य किं प्रयोजनम् इति चेत् निष्कौशाम्बिः अतिखट्वः इत्यत्र सुलोपनिवारणं प्रयोजनम्. That was what was told there. Now he says, no, this dirgha is not required. So take away the dirgha. You can delete dirgha in the sutra. Then how will we prevent sulopa here? Because this is nyanta and abanta. If that is the question, he says, aap ni iti prashlesha. Here also we do prashlesha. Prashlesha is aap. yatra akara rupaha abantah asti. Same thing which we saw now. If ap is in the it is an abanta in the form of an akara. So where the dirgha akara is heard. Similarly, ni, e. Atrapi savarna dirghena ikara prashleshaha. So if it is a jnanta, which is in the form of an ikaranta, then it will be lopa. Tadani sulopaha iti prashleshaha kriyate. Ap ityatra akara prashleshaha, ni ityatra ikara prashleshaha kriyate. Tena kim nishkaushambihi ityatra ikaraha nasti, atikhatvaha ityatra akaraha nasti. Ataha sulopo na bhavati. So even if we take away the word dirgha, we can prevent sulopa. How do we prevent sulopa? By saying by an akara prashlesha for ap and an ikara prashlesha for e. Evam halgyap iti sutrepi a ap ni e iti prashleshat atikhatvaha nishkaushambihi ityadi siddhehe. So we can derive the desired forms nishkaushambihi and atikhatvaha. Dirgha grahanam pratyakhyayam. Dirgha grahanam can be removed. So that means this word dirghat in this sutra can be removed by using this logic. Right? And always pratyakhyana laghava is a merit for grammar. So in grammar we say ardhamatra laghavam. Even if we can shorten Panini's sutra by half a matra, then it is a great achievement for any Vyakarana. So if we use the same logic, that is, this logic is not limited, using it in halgyabhyo dirghat also, we can achieve the desired result and we can remove dirgha. That is, we can shorten the sutra by one word. So which is why it is very useful. This technique is useful, is what he says. I cannot unmute you. I don't know why.
One question. So by bringing out this Halnyabhyo Dirghat Sutra here, will you not be tempted to apply this secondary paribhasha Nyavaga and then rule out the previous argument that Abandhat means Apurvaga Abandha, like that? That may be contested because this sutra itself, isn't it?
Right. Because he says dirgha, the previous thing can be contested, but then, true, it can be contested, but if it is contested, the problem is there you'll get undesired form. If you do not accept this prashlesha there, then you cannot prevent jarasi. The form would have to be jarasi. This is not the desired form. Ishta prayoge jarasi iti rupam nasti. Then you do not have any tool to...
And probably to preempt that being quoted as the secondary paribhasha, this statement has been made maybe.
What paribhasha are you referring?
No, meaning that, but not to quote this Halnyabhyo Sutra, it is being preempted here by specifically saying you cannot quote it there. Yeah, I get your point. Thank you.
No, it is because of the prayoga. Correct. I mean, the logic, what Shri Gopanji said was, the logic can be reversed. Okay, since Panini himself has said dirghat, it should mean that you cannot take this. Avni is not approved of by Panini. You can argue that way. But the problem is there is a shishta prayoga. The prayoga happens to be jarasau, and you have to support that prayoga somehow. And the way to support that prayoga is using the prashlesha, akara prashlesha. If we use akara prashlesha, we can prevent the formation of an undesired form like jarasi. Okay? So that technique has to be accepted, has been accepted by Bhashyakara for that. Okay? So once you accept that prashlesha can be done, we can use the same prashlesha here also, and we can shorten the sutra. It has been done. Pratyakhyana is there. The Bhashyakara has in several cases modified or removed the sutras of Panini depending on prayoga. So here also, by using that technique, we can shorten the sutra. We can remove the word dirghas and still not affect any prayoga undesirably. Okay. So evam halgyapiti sutrepi आ आप नी इ इति प्रश्लेषात् अतिखद्वः निष्कौशाम्बिः इत्यादि सिद्धेः दीर्घग्रहणं प्रत्याख्येयम्. The दीर्घग्रहण can be removed. So this technique has uses other than just this. That is what he is trying to show. That it can be used in other cases also. So next the argument says, a ap ni I iti prashleshe krite dirghagrahanam vinati. Even without that word dirgha, we can prevent sulopa in this case. But there is a final thing for the argument, which I think we should look at tomorrow. Because today was only, there is no prakriya and it was only shastrartha, so it may be a bit heavy. So in the next class, we'll look at the final, we'll just revise the argument so far and we'll go to the last part of the argument. Any questions? Okay. Enaksharasamam nayamadigamya maheshwara sutyam vyakaranam proktam tasmai paanihe namaha. Akhyakaram vararuchim bhashyakaram patanjalim paaninim sutrakaram cha pranatosmi munitrayam namaskutya tadukti shribhavya vyakarana siddhanta kauri jandarachyate. Okay. So we'll have the class as usual next Monday.